It is 7:42 here on this Friday morning wake-up call. It's time, as always, at this time with Friday at the Fuzz, so I'll toss over to Mike Green.
Thank you, Derek, and in studio with us, as always, Elgin Police Chief Jeff Swoboda, and with us today as well, Sergeant, at least for another day or so, Don Thiel. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Get right started because we've got plenty of stuff that we want to talk about this morning. This was an incident that happened very early on in January where there was a home invasion, and evidently the gentleman who was at home was attacked by the invader, right, and passed away. There was some speculation or he was sick, right, and so we weren't sure at this point how this was going to be ruled. It went to the Kane County coroner and went on additionally from there. Can you talk a little bit about that, where what happened, and statistically now, this is the first homicide for Elgin for the year, and hopefully the only.
Yes, yes. On January 7th, there was a home invasion in the 300 block of Ryerson, in which two men were at home while a group of subjects entered the home, and eventually the two that were in the home went to the hospital. One of them who was released, and the other gentleman ended up passing away on January 24th, so a couple weeks later, and worked through with the coroner's office, and eventually, actually a week ago today, we were notified that they were labeling this as a homicide. So yes, it's Elgin's first, and it's one that's actively going on. Just remind any resident who may have seen something or knows something over on Ryerson. I know we've reached out, we've been in contact with the family and the other gentleman who was home. So investigation's continuing, but at this point, nothing new to report.
Major investigations, 847-289-2646. Any additional information? Also, your anonymous crime tip line, which is 847-695-1146. No, 4195. 847-695-4195. And always you can text 847-411. Elgin PD at the start. That's what gets it routed to you. It gets scrubbed, and then any information after the Elgin PD is the information that you gentlemen will get. Correct?
Yep, and we get a pretty good amount of tips that come in, and whenever we do have tips that come in, and they ultimately our response takes place and an arrest is made, we'll try and put that in part of our press release that we thank the community for their input. We've said before, 180 police officers, 108,000 people, and daytime population of, who knows what, but well over probably 200,000. We need all the help we can get with the amount of things that are going on in the community. So appreciate all the help, and sometimes just minor things that come in, and sometimes it's more major tips that come in. So
speaking of major tips and all the help you can get, sometimes that's from other departments as well.
That's right.
We had a case where there was a bridal shop robbery, and lo and behold, a couple weeks later, you get a call from another police department saying, hey, we think we have somebody here you might be interested in. Can you tell me a little bit how that works? This was the Miller husband and wife team, or not team necessarily, but a couple that, team, pair. I guess, right? Pair, and they were charged with Class X counts of armed robbery stemming from a March 6th incident of a bridal store in Elgin.
Yeah, we were notified on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, from Waukegan Police Department that they had a couple people in custody on an armed robbery, similar charge that we had, and through their investigation and in conversations with the subjects, that they recognized that there was something that might have happened in Elgin, so contacted the Elgin Police Department. Our detectives went out and spoke with them as well, and we ultimately did get a couple of charges for armed robbery, and so we were able to clear up the case. This was the case that on March 6th, about 7 p.m., inside a dress shop, and over there on 1200 block of Dundee Avenue, and the cell phone was taken, some cash was taken, and so it was, as you can see, the way criminals move about, from Waukegan to Elgin, so it's not always just, these investigations are very complex and cross, city lines, and so working together with other departments is a staple of what specifically our detectives do. So this was one that turned out well. Another one that I know we probably won't talk much about, but just very quickly, burglary. Somebody comes home and finds that their house, the lights are on, and she knew that she shut off the lights before she left, and she knows one of our windows were broken. So didn't go in, just called the police. We went in with her. There was nobody there, but because it was undisturbed since the time that the burglar had left, our evidence technicians were able to go through and lift a couple fingerprints and ultimately identified a subject who lived out of Maywood, who we really realistically never would have came across again, but happened to be out in our neighborhood and decided to do a burglary. And our evidence technicians did a great job getting a fingerprint and put it through the system and identified who it was. And detectives went out to Maywood and picked up the subject and arrested him. So again, just give us a call when something like that doesn't seem right. You feel, I thought I locked my front door before I left, and that just doesn't feel right. Or you open your door and your gut feeling is telling you something's not right. Give us a call. We'll get there. If we're busy, it might take us a little bit, but generally speaking, a call like that's going to be a top priority call, and we'll get over there and go through the house with you. And if it turns out to be nothing, so be it. But err on the side of giving us a call.
How long does working a scene like that take? So your officers show up, and like you said, they were able to print and do everything else. How long does processing a crime scene, and I know it can differ greatly, but
obviously depending on
the size and
hours to days. We've been on crime scene days. We've had homicide cases where we'll be there and we'll secure the location and be out there for multiple days. Other ones, a car burglary where maybe we dust the dashboard or the stolen vehicle as best we can, and it might just take half hour, an hour, but kind of all depends.
In a situation like you were talking about, hours, days, it could take. What happens after the crime scene is worked? Now, I've got a house where I've got fingerprint powder all over, police say, do I take all that down as the resident? Do you take a portion of it? That popped in my head when you were talking about, I've got all this stuff now in the house. What happens next?
Let's bring Don Thielen. He was in charge of investigations for a long time. And
there are times when we're in a house that we can't help but do some damage. We don't want to. We want to minimize that. But yeah, fingerprint powder is made out of a product that's going to stain, and it might stain your carpet some and might stain your countertops, but we really can't help that. There are times we have to dig stuff out of walls as well and damage walls. And yeah, unfortunately, the homeowner is kind of responsible for cleaning that stuff up. We do the best we can. We try to minimize it, but there could be a little bit of damage that we leave behind. It's unfortunate. We wish it wouldn't be that way, but it's kind of the way it shakes out.
Never thought of that when I've seen it being done in movies or television shows or anything like that. It never crossed my mind until you said, it could take days. Well, all this stuff going on for days, what happens after? Yeah, so kind of the aftermath of it all, and just the gift that keeps on giving, I guess, in a robbery like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes that's the way it is.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll talk real quick. That was a separate case with the fingerprints, and interesting. You were talking about, where your officers went to Waukegan. I do a lot of driving in my job now, and I'll see a police car from somewhere completely, it doesn't belong. I'll be in Crestwood, and I'll see an Algonquin police officer, car going down the road, and I'm like, what is that guy doing here? And that's what it most of the times is, or they're going to a court case or something like that, or an investigation, right?
Yeah, that court, somebody might arrest somebody on one of our warrants. We have to go pick them up. So detectives are generally in unmarked vehicles, but yeah, we'll do transports all over, and sometimes we go down to Cook County, so you'll see our squad. And we get those calls, We had one just a few weeks ago. I saw an officer driving down 59. What is an Elgin officer on 59? Yeah. And it's a legitimate question. I tell people, we truly do work for the community. They want to know, why they saw a police car out in another town. Now, if it's an easy explanation, which this one was, they were heading to go pick up something, we'll tell them, hey, they're going to pick somebody up. If they were doing something that we don't want to release, not because of anything negative that was going on, but just there's no reason to put out the information. We'll just say, no, we know why the officer was there, and sometimes it's a conversation. Hey, why were you over on 59? And officers do. We're expected to go all over the place. Sometimes we're going to an accident scene that occurred in Elgin. The car was stopped someplace else outside of town. We're going to go to there. There's a million reasons why Elgin officers would have to leave the city of Elgin.
We'll get to the good stuff now, I guess, right?
Let's do it.
Don, after 20-something...
26.
Yep, you're retiring. What went into the decision? Was just time?
Just time. It's time for me. We've got a pension program that we can start to collect at a certain age, and I'm ready for that age, and it's time for me to get out of here.
I think we all kind of eye that a little bit, yeah. And was it a surprise? Was it planned the same thing? Norma, your wife?
Correct.
Also retiring as well, right?
Yeah, she's leaving with me. We're going to look at leaving the northern Illinois area and going somewhere warm.
Was this winter the kicker for
I'll
you?
tell you, this was it.
Oh,
pushed me over the edge.
No kidding. It was brutal. Any specific plans at all? What you'd like to do, or?
No, we're both going to continue to work. We'll be
Okay.
When we settle somewhere in the south there in another few months, we'll both look for work and continue to work. I'm too young to sit and do nothing.
Right.
It's important to stay active, and so we're going to do that. But it's been good. It's been 26 good years. I've enjoyed it. It's had its ups and downs, but all in all, the best job in the world.
What kind of things have you seen in Elgin in your 26 years? What different departments have you been in? What did you, you know, if you had to go back and do a Reader's Digest of your 26 years of Elgin, how would that roll out?
Well, I started on the patrol division like most officers do. I was on the night shift for the first few years. Went into detectives after that, was there for a number of years. Went upstairs for Chief Gruber and worked internal affairs for a year. That's where we investigate complaints against officers, so you can't say that was a fun time.
No.
But it was certainly educational, and it was good, good development time for me. And then I've also worked in the traffic division. I've supervised the detectives, the night shift, the afternoon shift, pretty much all the shifts. Done some teaching there at the police department. That's been very satisfying for me. I've enjoyed that a lot. Watching what happened to the police department over the years has been interesting. When I started here, cell phone technology was not around yet. We didn't have computers at our desks. We had typewriters and carbon paper, and we worked through that.
Wow.
We had one bag phone when I was a detective, and we would share the bag phone. But if you tried to drive with the bag phone, it'd drop your call because cell towers weren't capable yet of passing calls.
Yeah.
So anytime we went out of the office, we had to take a pocket full of quarters so we could use a payphone and make a call if we needed to. We got fancy beepers about my second year in the detective division,
Nice.
which you could actually send a message to.
Yep.
And we were high tech at that point. We had messages on our beepers, so that was something.
I had one of those. I felt like I had made it in the world when I got one of those. Yep, I know what you're saying.
So now to see us transition into the information age and the things that officers can get now right in the car and on the computer is just amazing. And it's kind of left me behind, I have to be honest. I'm not real good with the technology, and it's probably a good thing that it's time for me to go because these young kids now can just blow me away when it comes to gathering information. Now, I'd have to say I'm a little better
I was just going to say.
with people than they are,
Yeah.
based on my experience. But technology-wise, they're fantastic.
And I think Chief Swoboda would say it's an important balance to have within the department and with the people, right? With, as Sergeant Thiel was saying, he's probably better with people than some of the young kids that are maybe better with technology. But as a force and as a whole, to have that full gamut, probably a positive, right?
Well, yeah, not just as far as over the department have people who are good with people and those who are good with technology, but to the individual,
Right?
Needing that healthy balance of being able to talk with people and then also get
Those are
things
things that can
technology.
develop over time.
Absolutely, and there are things that can be hampered if you're so reliant on technology. And so that's one of the things we're always stressing because we're coming up with a lot of new technology within the police department, and we never want to get to a point where the computer tells us where to go. The computer, it's still a people business. Policing is all about connection and working with the community and working together. And if we're buried behind a desk talking to a computer all day, or it's patrolling based on what a computer says, we're going to end up falling way behind. So it's a balance, and it is something that we have to work through sometimes when we hire new people.
Sergeant Thiel, what was most rewarding of all the positions that you were in? What, like individually to you, what did you enjoy doing most, and maybe what did you enjoy doing the least?
Well, the most satisfying to me was when I was a detective and a detective sergeant. Being able to take a case that seemed to have nothing. Maybe we would have a robbery scene or burglary scene where we had no suspects, no information, and then develop that into a case. Go into an interview room. You watch on TV and you see detectives go in the interview room with somebody.
Darn television.
And television's fake and phony, of course. But I'll tell you, that time in that interview room, mano a mano, you and that person, and you start to have almost a battle of wills and of words, and to get that person to confess to what they did was fantastic. I loved that challenge, and that was one of my favorite times doing that. And I spent about 7 years doing that over my career, so that was good.
It's a good portion of it. I know.
Yeah.
And least rewarding, or maybe an individual case, or one thing that kind of stands out as going, oof.
I would say that the worst thing is dealing with the death.
Yeah.
The death is constant in police work. Most of it natural, people dying of natural causes, and we have to go to homes every week, sometimes multiple times a week. Of course, car crashes and murders and other things. But the death gets tiresome. It wears me down. And I'm happy now to be in a point where I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad that's over with for me.
Good. We also had a couple other, aside from yourself and Norma, also Leon Filas, right, announced his
Left
retirement last week.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Goff,
Mike
also
Goff.
retiring. And Mike's been in studio with us before, and I've worked with him on a professional level outside of here before. Great guy, and darn good artist that, as we found out here on WRMN's Friday with the Fuzz, self-taught.
Yeah.
and he's leaving. And who will replace him doing that?
You know, we do have a couple younger officers that he's actually taken the time to mentor, just as he has learned. And I found out through one of our former police officers, Detective Rouse. We have Dan Rouse, who works for us now, but Jesse, his father, was a police officer and apparently had done that as well. So now Mike had taken it on him. I was walking by the major case room maybe a few months ago, and he had the two newer ones, the two new sketch artists in there, and they were working together, and he was mentoring them and teaching them. And yeah, it's a constant, the ship keeps moving, and so you get so many days where you're a police officer and you do the best you can, and then you pass the torch on to somebody else, and then hopefully they take it a little bit further.
Speaking of passing the torch, Bill Wood announced as being promoted to sergeant to replace Sergeant Don Thiel.
Yeah, and maybe we'll hear from Don as far as if Bill was sitting here, and we'll have a chance later today. But what would be the one piece of advice that maybe as Bill Wood just taking over the becoming a new sergeant, what would be the one piece? I know there's a lot of things that you probably want to tell him, but what would you tell him?
Well, Bill and I have talked, and see, the responsibility of taking care of your officers is one of the primary duties of a sergeant. And in order to learn to do that, it takes time, it takes skill. You have to develop people's respect. You have to earn their respect, and that respect doesn't come easy. And so Bill has to work at that to gain their respect. And when he does that, he'll be effective for the rest of his years at the police department.
Good advice. Good advice. Also, 4 new hires coming on board. Have you sworn those individuals in already? Or
We'll do that today.
Today?
We'll do that today. So if you get to see different stages of people's lives, careers, all brand new officers coming on, becoming police officers. Some of which have been police officers before and are making the leap to come to Elgin, which again I think says a lot about the Elgin Police Department. So we're going to be having of the 4, 2 of our police officers now. 2 others will then start their journey as police officers, going down to the academy. Bill Wood will be promoted to sergeant, and then we have Mike and Norma and Don all retiring. So I know today there'll be a large contingent from the retired folks will be there. The community will be there. So it'll be a packed lobby, and we were talking about a little bit this morning about moving it and whether or not it should be moved. And we use the Heritage Ballroom from time to time. There's something nice about doing it at the police department at home. It's kind of like when you have a party at your house and it's packed, but it's your house, so it feels right. You're in control of the environment, and it's nice. So it'll be crowded, but it'll be a great time for people to come out. And as I'm going to say later today, policing is one of those things that when you do it right and you leave, you can leave proudly. You leave with the support and admiration of your coworkers, and then the community as well. For a job well done, they come out and support you. And then police officers, you retire from the police department, but you never really pull that officer out of the person. That they're still always going to have many of those same traits and love for the city. Hopefully, that most leave with that kind of respect for the department and the job. And so they'll come out and support Don and Mike and Norm as they leave. So it'll be a nice day.
After 26 years, it's going to be difficult to look at things in a different mind's eye. Any situation you might be in, driving down the road or being in a supermarket and you see something, and
sure, that's ingrained in me now. So
that's
yeah,
you, right? It's
going to
part
take
of
a
you.
long
It's gotta
time
be.
to put away. It'll probably never go away. You always look at a critical eye at things, and with a critical eye. That's okay. I can live with that. That's all right.
I can live with that. Good.
More skeptical than when you came on, maybe.
Well, yeah, more cautious, of course. But you have to fight that as a police. You have to not become paranoid. You have to have friends outside of the police department and do events outside of police events so that you don't become overwhelmed with the thoughts that, you always have to be looking for a bad guy.
Right.
That's a great point.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. Don, did you have anything else that you wanted to say at all? No, you're good. I didn't know you did.
It's been a good 26 years. I've enjoyed it. Met a lot of good people. I got to help a few people along the way. And
I'm sure more than a few.
well, it's been good, and I was happy to be here. So thank you.
I'm glad to have you. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I appreciate WRMN always allowing us to not only just talk about current events, but take a few minutes to honor those employees who, whether they're promoted. We'll have Bill Wood on here in the coming weeks, but honor those who are leaving and those who are getting promoted, and just some of the initiatives that we have going on, like Citizens Police Academy or the Alumni Association or our Community Emergency Response Team with the flooding that's going on.
Yeah.
I know Karen Flanagan would say, think about an escape plan now. Think about basements and where your documents are kept and all those things. And exactly. So we know it's probably coming. Just as far as how significant it'll be, who knows? And you'd also know the area you're living, whether or not it's flood prone. But
Thought we were having a monsoon last night.
yeah, it was bad. And as I experienced last year, at any point, your sump pump can go out. So flooding can affect anyone at any time.
Yeah,
So
happened to me.
just where you're keeping your things, how you store them, and where you store them. Just kind of think that through.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Don, congratulations. Good luck to you in your future.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And then thanks for coming on WRN.